Alright, in this series of videos we're going to look in transformation of graphs. Now it is an A-star topic, but if you follow the 6 rules, or some people teach as 4 rules, and you apply it to the certain questions that they may give you, then it should be okay. It's not that difficult of a topic. Now the first rule we're going to look at is if you have a function, f of x means function of x. Okay, so they'll give you a graph with a function. Now if you have plus a, what that means is that your graph will move up the y-axis by whatever a is. So for example, if I have a graph like this and this crosses the y-axis, remember this is your y and that's your x-axis. Now if this crosses the y-axis at 1, if this function here, this a now becomes 3, your new graph will go up by 3, so it'd be 2, 3 and then 4. So 1 plus 3 is 4, so what you do, you go up and that will now be 4. So it only affects the y-axis by whatever number this one is. Please make sure that your x-coordinates do not change. Right, so your numbers on your x-coordinates do not change. It only goes up on the y-axis by whatever number this is. Your second rule, if you had f of x minus a, now if it's inside the bracket, it's going to affect the x-axis. So for example, if I had a curve like this and say this was 2 and this was minus 2, if your a value now, say we had minus 2, all you have to remember is that this whole graph will shift this way towards a positive by 2. So therefore your new graph will look like this. So this will now become 0 and that will become 4. Okay, because the whole graph has shifted towards the right by 2 points. Get that in. Okay, now with f of x minus a, if the minus or the plus a is inside the bracket, you have to make sure you know where you move. So if it's inside the bracket, then you move either left or right along the x-axis. If it's a minus, you move towards the right. If it's a positive, you move towards the left. So just make a note of that if you're watching this video and you're making your own notes. If it's inside the bracket, it affects the x-axis, and if it's a negative number inside a bracket, you move towards a positive. If it's a positive number, then you move towards the negative side by whatever number a is. Your third rule, if you had a f of x, so again outside the bracket it's going to stretch, so you just multiply your y value. So again, if I cross this at, let's say 2, and I have 3f of x, I'm going to times that 2 by 3, which will be 6, so that will now cross at 6. Again, just make sure you do not change your x-coordinates, it only affects the y-axis. So this here, you can say you multiply your y-coordinate. Okay, rule number 4, again if it's f of ax, now the a is inside the bracket, so which axis will it affect? Will be the x-axis. So if I had a number like this, and this was crossing at 2 on the x-axis, if my number here now is 2, so this is f of 2x, I just divide this number now. So you divide the number which is represented by a, so now you divide by 2, so 2 divided by 2 is 1, so that simply just crosses now at 0.1. Okay, so if we just recap, if you have f of x plus a, remember outside the bracket is going to affect the y-axis, so we're going to move up by wherever a is. If it's a minus a, then we move down. Okay, so let me just make a note of that. So if it's a minus a, then we move down. If it's a plus a, then you move up. If it's inside a bracket, if it's a minus a, you move towards the right. If it's a plus a, you move towards the left. Okay, rule number 3. If the a again is outside the bracket, then you multiply the y coordinate by whatever a is. So in this case it was 3. 2 times 3 is 6. And if the a is inside the bracket, then you just divide your x coordinate by whichever number it was. So if it's 2 here, then you divide it by 2. Let's put this down. Now also please note, if you have reflections, so if you have a minus f of x, this is going to be a reflection in the x-axis. So that's my x-axis here, and I'll come down. A reflection across the x-axis will be this way here. If I've got f of minus x, it will be a reflection in the y-axis again over here. I'll just separate this. So f of minus x over here inside the bracket will now affect the y-axis. If I've got a curve over here, it's going to make a reflection upon the y-axis there. So just remember those rules, and then you should be fine, and watch the future videos on how we can apply this into exam questions. Thanks for watching.